Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We're thrilled to be back together as an early childhood committee and a group of enthusiastic early childhood educators coming together again. I think it's fair to say we've all been in the same storm, but in slightly different boats. And so tonight is about reconnecting and re-envisioning our role as early years educators after the last few rather challenging years. I'm going to introduce the SIG really quickly, and then I will hand over to the wonderful Pam and introduce Pam officially. So these are our committee members and early childhood SIG members. Some of them are here, and perhaps you can give a little wave when I introduce you. So we've got John, and John has just completed his 30th year working at the American School in London, and Alex, who is at the International School of Geneva, Michelle, who is at Zurg and Lucerne, Claire, who is currently in New York, but was previously based in Kiev, and myself. I am Lindsay, and I am working currently at the International School of The Hague. And you can see that there are 2 question marks there. Well, after this meeting, we'll talk a little bit more, but we are recruiting new members for our SIG, our special interest group. So if you are interested in joining us to help us reconnect and move our SIG forward together so that we can help join together our early years committee and think about new opportunities for professional development, we'd really love to hear from you, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I'll go back to the first slide. So tonight we will be relighting the early years fire with the lovely Pam. I had the pleasure of working with Pam a very long time ago?
You can say a long time ago. I look very young in that photograph. I was just
in about 2015, when she came to the International School of The Hague and really helped us with our early years educational approach. But Pam is an internationally renowned author and keynote speaker. She has a wealth of experience in education, starting up international schools, working in early childhood research. She's currently Director of Academics at NEOM Education, and is in so many committees and advisory bodies that it is really an honour to have you here with us tonight. So thank you for leading this session.
Not at all, Lindsay. It's a pleasure. My pleasure.
I am going to try and stop sharing now so that you can.
Thank you very much. And thank you for that lovely introduction. When I hear that, I always wish my mother was here to hear it, because I'm sure she thought I'd absolutely make nothing of my life. So I spent my whole life as a child playing school. So my dolls and teddies had a terrible time. And here I am all of these years later, and I'm still in school and I still love it. But the honour is mine tonight, because I've worked with early childhood for a long time, and children, much older children. And at the moment, as Lindsay said, I'm actually in NEOM in Saudi Arabia, which I don't know if you know is the brand new city in Saudi Arabia. And when we say we're building a city, trust me, if I open the curtains now, we're building a city. It's chaos out there in terms of building work. However, that's not what we're here for. So when Lindsay and Michelle and I first talked about doing this, we were talking about, where do we start? Where do we go with what's happening out there in early childhood? And Lindsay and Michelle were talking to me, which is how I've become part of this, about the SIG and what had happened. And of course, everybody came to a grinding halt because of the virus, because of the pandemic. And I can't say, and now we're out of the pandemic, because of course there are countries that are still suffering from it. However, what I wanted to do tonight was just sort of bring us all back together, because my saving grace in all of this terrible time that we've been through has been all of the people I work with, educators, universities, investors, finance people. But the real saving grace for me has been everyone in early childhood, because whatever you do to early childhood people, whatever happens, we just go, right, okay, right, let's get on with it. And we did. And ours was a tough one, a really tough one. I don't know how many of you had to do learning online or had to do learning online and had your own children there at the same time, but that was a pretty tough call. So I want to come back to what I believe is the beauty of childhood, and to say, right, everyone in this call tonight, and your friends and everyone else, what are we going to do now to bring this not back to where it was, but to take this into the next era, the next stage of early childhood. And what I love about this particular moment in time is, to me, it's a window. And for years and years, people have been saying to us, oh, you should do it this way in early childhood. Oh, actually, no, you should do it that way. Oh, no, have you thought of that? And we're so amenable often. We're going, yeah, okay, all right. But in our hearts, we've really, I believe we've got the core of what early childhood is. And to me, it's this here. It's what Robert McCannon is saying, that children are most definitely born with whirlwinds, with forest fires, with comets inside them, able to read the clouds. This alone is the blueprint of the mind. It's the blueprint of the future. It's everything. People talk all the time about the future, and they forget to look here at the very youngest children, because you're face on with the future. And that is both terrifying and the most exciting thing. And I just got into awful trouble this afternoon. Well, not trouble, this afternoon. I just happened to pop into the early childhood part of the school that I'm working on the startup for at the moment. And of course, I just happened to stick my head into the baby's room, the toddler's room, really. And before I knew where I was in there, and I was covered in children. And that's where I like to be. And apparently I should have been in some really important meeting, but hey, these things happen. So the images here are quite important for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it's a fire, but on the right, that's a photo. It's a little girl, and she had drawn her response to coming back into her nursery. That's her response to the virus. That's her and the virus. And we talked a little bit about it, but that was her way of kind of getting this thing out into the open. And the little boy on the left, I promise we didn't put him in a box. He was perfectly behaved. It wasn't that. But when he returned to nursery, that was all he would do. Sit in anything that was contained. And we all know about, I'm sure all of you know about container schemas. But that's what he wanted to do, and to cuddle that lion, which was his favorite toy throughout the whole time that he'd been at home. But there's something quite interesting about that, I believe, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you are hearing, the learning gap, we've got to catch up, we've got to fill the gap. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'll cover it in the slides tonight. It's not about a learning gap. The gap is human. And where the slides come, and there are lots of words on them, forgive me, colleagues on the call, I will leave, you can have these slides, you can have the deck. I'm just going to pick up some of the elements from it. And so when I think about the distance, and now tonight we're at a distance, but really that's convenience more than anything else for all of us. There's no way on this earth that we could have replicated the world that we create in early childhood online or without actually being together, because it's the social world that's the most important thing about childhood. This is what we've got to set light to again. This is where children learn to be part of society, and us too. But what's happening is that children have come back to us, and I'm assuming that everybody's got their children back. Some of you may not. The stress of that intensity that's been going on, being at home with families, not seeing their friends, some children who've never been to school before that you've got now, been to nursery or school before. So you've already got allostatic load, the stress in childhood that can really impact mental and physical health. And there's so much talked about this now. I'm not going down that road with you. But what is it that we can do to actually put the wallet back into early childhood, really, really bring children back to where we want them to be, and actually propel them forward into a fantastic world of excitement and joy and all the kinds of learning that we love. And by doing so, bring us as adults to a much better place, because I can't believe there's no one on this call tonight who isn't still a little bit anxious. How close do I get to someone, and what should I do in this situation? And do I wear a mask? Do I not? What do I do? So these are just the key themes really that came from that. I've called it darkness because I do believe it was. There was such a lot of challenge for families that have got the youngest children. I will let you into a secret. A very good friend of mine who has a really important job. She's terribly posh. She's not like me at all. And I was speaking to her one day and she said, oh, I'm really sorry, just give me a moment. And she went into the little bathroom in the bedroom that she was working in. And she said, are you okay? Are you okay? And came out again. And I said, everything all right? She said, yes. She said, I've got my 3-year-old at home and my husband's working downstairs. And so I thought the best thing, Pam, and you'll understand this, the best thing was to put him over there in the ensuite bathroom. And my first thought was, how many shampoos could he drink while he's in there? And she said, oh, don't worry about it. I've covered the plug hole. He can't put his fingers into that. He was absolutely fine, just so you know. But it was people not knowing how to cope or how to do, and seeing for the first time properly exactly what we do day in and day out, and how fantastic but jolly tough it is to work with early childhood, because there is no hiding place, there is no space. And also, parents actually got a chance to see what we do to some extent, and they've had that insight into early childhood, close and personal, that they don't normally see. So if they're with us, even if we've got babies here from 2 months, they're with us all day, and the parents are told, they know, but there isn't a baby alive that goes home and says, you know what, Mum, I had a great day today. So how do we share that? And then learning, I've just said it, it didn't diminish, it didn't get less. It was actually enhanced by a richer interaction between the school and the home, or the nursery and the home. And I think that's key to what I want to talk about. So I think it was a time of deep learning, really precious time. And for some children, I know it was not good to be at home. I'm very aware of that. And that's where there became a proper, authentic partnership with parents. And all of this, to me, is where the future lies. This is where we start again. So you'll recognize these characters just from the film, I'm sure, the different emotions. But the real gap, yes, it's an emotional one. It's about learning to be together. But it struck me a couple of days ago. Isn't it interesting that we spend half our lives in early childhood saying to children, share with your friends. No, we don't take all of that. We put that on the table, we share, and let's have all of these things out for you to look at and explore. And then we suddenly went to don't touch. So don't sit too close to your friend. Don't do this. Let's clean that. Let's make everything clean. When early childhood is messy and unpredictable, messy in all senses of the word. And how confusing for those children. And what about the ones who've never had the experience of being with us in a setting with other children? There's so much here to hold on to, but there's another gap, another window. And this one, I think, is the best one, because while no one is looking and we're all trying to get ourselves back together again, this is our moment in time to do all of the things we have ever wanted to do with very small children. You may be lucky, you may be working in a school, a nursery, a setting, an early childhood centre, where you have freedom, where you have absolute freedom to allow children to do what I believe they should do, which is to explore, to follow their passions, follow their interests, to be children, to enjoy childhood with you as the guides on the side, watching those fascinating things. And that's the most interesting thing in the world is to watch what children do. We've got a moment. We've got a moment now to do all of those things and more, because the children with us today, right now, we're taking care of their world. So their future is in our hands. You go on a few years and our future is actually in theirs. So what are we going to do now that might be different? And this is where I think we as ECIS can make such a colossal difference in the world. I'm going to paraphrase something that I really love, which is, I forget who said it, but the comment was, only a small group of people who are committed can ever change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever did change the world. So how are we going to change the world for children? Well, I think there's various ways forward. I think we come back to learning to be human again, and lots of words here. I'm just going to pull out the things that I think are important. This now is an opportunity to even more bring our gift as teachers, as educators, as assistants into really nurturing children's learning and how they are with each other, how we develop inquiry, how we look at this learning space around us and say, well, we managed, we did what we had to do during the pandemic. How can we make this fantastic now? How can we bring children back into a fantastically natural world, a world where they are allowed to be part of what's going on, and also for us to accept that they may not play together well just yet. They may not share well just yet. They may not be brave enough to be interested in things again yet. We have to do that. We have to work with them to do it. Because this is what we're after. We're about connecting as a group, as ECIS, as the SIG. That's critical. Connecting with our children again, and remembering, I think, that it's still okay for us as adults not to be okay. Just as we had to unteach children about sharing, we've actually reversed a lot of things that we used to do too. So how are we with the children? Have we changed? Are we doing things differently? Or are we remembering what it was like before and building on that? Because that's the only way that we're going to relight this and actually do the things that we want to do. And I find this really interesting. I don't know if anybody on the call is in New Zealand or from New Zealand, I have no idea. But some of you may know the very community-centred New Zealand early years curriculum, the Te Whāriki. And I love this piece. It accepts that children bring to the table, bring to the nursery, bring to the school, whatever they have inherited, not just what they've done in their first 2, 3 or 4 years of life. But look at this, I come not with my own strengths, but I bring with me the gifts, the talents and the strengths of my family, my tribe and my ancestors. I wonder how often we build on that with children. There isn't a child in the world who's ever come into an early childhood setting with nothing. They come with everything. Here's our chance, ladies and gentlemen, here's our chance to actually spend some time building on from that. And then learning will be relit. It will be rekindled. And actually, before you ask the question, no, that is not me, having had a particularly bad day in the photograph. Because we do carry our childhood with us. But we want children now to bring their childhood to us as the real experts, the specialists who understand them better than anyone. And I'll tell you why. If you are an early childhood educator, it's because you have never lost the child within, ever. And that's something that children see. However tall or old or short or dark or whatever you are, the children see the child within because you're heart-led. So we carry our childhood with us as much as they do. We need to get back to playing with that. So it is a big wide world. So what are we going to do? So we've got our almost normal lives back. How do we give children that quality experience that we had before? Well, a couple of ways. Some of the things I've said already. I think what we have to do now is look at the threads of what children bring to us. If they were in nursery or school before the pandemic and they've come back, let's just gather the threads of what happened before and let's weave it into what they experienced and then create a fantastic tapestry of the learning that we want to take forward. Pull those threads together. How do we now decide what we all believe is best practice? How do we decide these are the things that we will never sway from, the non-negotiables, I would call them. So whatever framework or curriculum or government changes come, these are the things we will not move on. And we have a really good role model ahead of us. I am not, you may be in a setting that uses the Reggio Emilia philosophy. It was never a curriculum. I'm not suggesting we all rush down the Reggio Emilia road. I'm really not. It's a wonderful philosophy. However, it needs to be here in the 21st century. But the one thing I do want you to think about is, this is Loris Malaguzzi, who founded the Reggio Emilia schools, the ones that everyone talks about, everyone wants to go to. Have you thought about why he did it? And if you haven't, The Reggio Emilia schools were established as a response to the Second World War. He realized all the things that had gone on, children that had seen terrible things, death and destruction and illness, fear, grief, and said, no, right, we need to come now and bring children into a wonderful, creative, spiritual, beautiful world where they have the time to pursue the things that fascinate them, where we can bring them into this wonderful world of high quality learning, challenging learning, no parameters, and we know where we're taking them through short projects, through long projects that we build from first-hand experiences. And this is the piece that people don't often hold on to, their theories about the world, because children do have their theories. I love the fact as an early childhood teacher, for one moment, you're actually helping children understand the difference between the colors red and blue. And 5 minutes later, they've asked you why the moon seems to follow you when you're walking and you're into astrophysics. You know, how do you early years educators are phenomenal people. You can go from one to the other in one fell swoop. And look at Howard Gardner. Some of you may be familiar with his work. You know, we've got to treat very young children with seriousness in terms of really accepting the trajectory they're following, the learning they want to do, their interests. But we also want them to have pleasure, joy, and extensive time to think. So here we are, post-pandemic, some other terrible things going on in the world. I hope you're all safe wherever you are. Here's a chance to say, okay, we want these children to grow up understanding how beautiful the world is, how it is possible to be creative, how nothing really can stand in your path. Yes, of course, you need to learn basic things. You need to learn your numbers, your letters. All of that is key. But how far can we go with the exploration of quality learning, the fascinations of children, the curiosity of children? And I, for the rest of my life, I hope I continue to be what my husband has always called terminally curious, which usually embarrasses him quite a lot, just so you know. Nothing that we do now, I don't believe, should be without joy. And for me, these three images just sum up what joy is. If you ever struggle to know what joy is, it's here. Interestingly, you know, the child on the left roller skates for the first time. It's a very old photo. No, it isn't me, just in case anybody's going to really offend me tonight. But look at that. She doesn't actually even need to go anywhere. The sheer jolly joy of standing on those roller skates is enough. Now, please don't go and rush out and order sets of roller skates for the children. It's not that. It's saying, what gives children joy? Watch them, be with them. What is it that gives them joy? And build on it. That's high quality learning. The little boy in the middle, it's all fine. He landed, it was safe, there was a splash. But, you know, lots of people have looked at this photograph and gone, what if it's all sort of hard underneath? You know, sometimes we have to leap. And the little girl on the right, I wish you could see her feet. First time she'd ever had bare feet on sand. And if that isn't joy and high quality learning, I don't know what is. And sometimes we miss these moments. You know, what did she learn? People are so worried about, you know, what did she learn? What's the learning objective? What she learned was the texture, the way that sand feels in your feet, the way that it moves underneath. Isn't that some pretty high quality learning? Can we come back to that? And for me, it's about releasing learning again into the wild. We've contained it for such a long time. We've had to. Now, don't put the butterflies under glass. Let them fly, guide them, do some of the things you love with them too. And this is what I believe is rekindling the learning. Obviously, there are elements here that you'll recognize. Children are already protagonists. They're already capable and competent. You know, if we stop giving them everything, they will take us to the place they need to learn. And for us as teachers, when I say active researchers, I don't mean please go out and buy 15,000 books. I'm talking about watching the children and learning what we do next with them, learning where we take this project, this topic, this theme, learning what resources we bring into the classroom because the children are showing interest, putting things in the classroom that really excite, interest and provoke them because they don't know what it is. And it doesn't have to be anything completely major. And this obviously is very much from Norris Malaguzzi, understanding that the learning environments that we've got are the third or silent teacher. And my strapline for that is always the same. If tomorrow the children came to nursery or school and you didn't, what could they still learn without you there? And if you just, in your head, if you went around your own setting or your school or whatever, wherever it is that you work now, in your head, could they still be active? Could they still explore? Could they still learn? Or is it that the environment that they're learning in requires the adult all the time to be present? And I'm also talking about the environment that we create in terms of our relationships. You know, I always think, and someone said to me, it's a terrible thing to say, Pam. I think children are react very much as animals do, instinctively. You know, they always know when you like them, when they don't. I always love it when somebody who's not very comfortable with small children comes into a nursery setting. And it's the funniest thing in the world, because you can see them trying to get away in case the children touch them. You know, we know these children. So how much do we actually have a learning environment that allows children to be children, to explore and to bring to us phenomenal learning that we maybe haven't thought of? And then I think we've got a real advantage here mid-post pandemic. That partnership that we had to strike with parents in the beginning, when there was nothing else we could do other than be in this thing together, we've actually created, for those of you who had children who were with you before then, really authentic partnerships. And I use that word a lot because I've seen so many policies. I know, you know, we have partnership with parents, we do this, we do that. Is it real? Does it continue beyond the day that the child has in school? How authentic is it? Are you genuinely partners for this child's life? You have so many hours of the child, the parents have the other. When do you put that 24 together? That's authentic partnership. And I think this would almost, if I ever had a tattoo, and I never will, I'd have this tattooed on my chest, I swear it. It's about the meaning we as adults are making of the world now, coming back together, working it all out. But also, this is what we do with our children, I think. We've got to work out by observation, by being with them, what's the meaning that the children are now making in relation to this world, to themselves, and to others. What are the experiences, not just to do with the pandemic, but what experiences are children like this little girl here bringing to the table? And not just what can she do, but how is it that she can do that? What is it that she's previously experienced that she brings now? And my goodness me, doesn't that inform the future? And then how can I, as the educator, the assistant, the teacher, how can I change those meanings if they need to be changed and take them to the next step? Our role, I believe, is to take the children's ideas from them and return them to them for further investigation. That's partnership in a different way. And this photograph fascinates me. Obviously, you can see what the little girl's doing. She's got some dough. Teachers put out for them some pine cones, some shapes, some rollers. Now, interestingly, she's poking the clay, the dough that you can see. And it made me wonder why. Someone gave the photograph to me. And then I looked at the rollers. If you look at the rollers in the foreground of the picture, it's got little holes in. Now, has that provoked the idea? Is it just that it felt nice? Is it something else? I don't know. And obviously, very small children can't tell you why. The only way you'll know is by being with them in the moment, working out what that meaning is. And I do actually think, I wish I'd thought of this when I was a teacher. How genius to put the dough and all the things she's doing on those plastic mirrors. That's a great idea. I love that. Apart from the fact that teachers' photograph taking is reflected in it. But you don't know what this little girl's going to do in her future. And it reminded me of, you know, you look at people doing experimenting in brain surgery or doing the exploration. I thought, you never know where she's going. It's the meaning they make now that puts them on the road to life. And I do think this is really important. It is our task to help children climb mountains as high as they possibly can. That's all we can ask of anyone. So let's come back to relighting, rekindling the fire of learning. Let's think about discovery. And this is a very simple image, but I think it's absolutely genius. It's a digital microscope that they've managed to project onto the wall. I haven't said to the children what it is. And the children just wanted to draw around it, just to touch it, just to feel it. But it's discovery. And the little one here, just digging. I mean, you know this is high quality practice. But let's come back to this, but this time with a renewed sense of vision, with a renewed desire, a burning desire to create something new. And together as a group, as a SIG, I think that we can make some major differences in the world together. And it always fascinates me, two more images to finish with really this evening. I'm always fascinated by how the great artists and scientists and writers in the world always reference children. And I look at this little girl having a wonderful time. Incidentally, just so you know, her parents were very upset because they felt she isn't writing yet. We showed this photograph to them. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that's emergent writing, if you need to say that. This is everything. This is a child that's watched an adult writing and said and thought to herself, so when they write, they do that because that's what your hands look like when you're writing. I'll have a go. But look at her, look at the concentration. She cannot get close enough to what she's creating. And it reminded me that Picasso said, and I know some people say, yes, it shows. It took me all those years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to be able to paint with the quality and the innocence and the real perception that a child did. Have we still got that? Have we? And then this one. This to me is rebellion in its most perfect, purest form. The task for this little girl recently was, you can see behind her, it's very red. They were going to paint a London bus all together, the teacher had decided. This little girl was fascinated by the polystyrene tray that the paint is in and the way that the paint, if you've ever put it in trays, it doesn't stick to the sides, it will run down. But she was determined to cover the tray with that paint. The bus, not interested. What did the teacher do? Let her carry on with it. Because the exploration, look at the concentration, look at the way she's sitting, the exploration in that single moment was worth far more than painting the bus behind her. And I pick up here, science fiction writer, very famous writer, Ray Bradbury. Touch a child and you touch a scientist. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? So that's where I would like to stop this evening. I'm happy to obviously have discussions with you or whatever it is, but I'll leave you with this. And again, I'm saying to you, I'm not suggesting we should all turn to Reggio Emilia at all. I've taken elements of that philosophy against other amazing educators. But this one for me, at this point in time, as we have all this fantastic opportunity ahead of us, all of us draw breath. Just stand aside for a while, for ourselves and for the children, and leave room for learning. Observe carefully what the children do. And then, and I'm going to say, if we have understood well enough, perhaps teaching will be different from before, and their future will be different from before. So I'm very excited that there are so many of you here tonight. I'm excited at where you are in the world. Just imagine all of us, just one little spark wherever we are. My goodness me, what a bonfire we're going to create for small children. Thank you. I will stop my sharing, Lindsay, and I will shut up.
Thank you so much, Pam. Yeah, I think that was beautiful and beautifully said. I think we're all very much changed. And I think this is our chance as well to change how we move forward as early childhood educators. Our children have come to us maybe differently to how they've come to us in the last few years. And this is also a moment for the early childhood SIG to think about change and how we can help each other as an ECIS member school community to bring that change about and to reconnect with each other. So I would like to share something. Sorry, I'm not very au fait at this business.
You are wonderful, Lindsay. Don't say sorry. It's the technology that's the issue, not the person.
You would think after all these years of
No, I had to get someone this afternoon to plug in their laptop. They said they didn't understand why it wouldn't work. It wasn't plugged in.
Okay, there we go. So just to recap, we have several members in our SIG, and we are a really dedicated team of early childhood educators. And we come from all over the world, but we need some more members. So not only is this a time of change for our children, but it's a time for our special interest group. We are looking for new people who are committed to making a difference to children and to education and what we believe in, and professional development and research. Oops. Let's see if I can move on. So what I would like to say to everybody is, if you are at all interested in joining us on our early childhood SIG, yeah, we're looking for new members who can work together, who are collaborative, who are committed to making a difference. If you are particularly passionate or knowledgeable in your field, you're keen to make connections, we are desperately in need of some people to help us boost our presence on social media, because we all know that's the way we're coming together, and we're bringing our minds together in the present time. So if you're interested in joining us, you can connect with us in lots of different ways. One of the ways you can do that is by checking us out on Facebook. We're also on Instagram and Twitter, and you can contact Michelle and myself. We're the co-chairs of the SIG via email. So if you'd like to consider joining our special interest group to help us look at the ways that we can bring the community together, perhaps with more webinars or planning a conference for the future, please get in touch. We're also really keen to find out from member schools and early childhood educators what you want from us. Like I said, this is a time for change. We want to know how we as a special interest group can support you and your needs after this rather troublesome and challenging time. So please get in contact. Please connect with us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and let's get this party started is how I'm going to end.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Pam. Sarah, I don't know if you want to say anything or add anything.
I will just thank you so much for that. But I'd just like to say thank you to the committee this year, to John and Michelle, Lindsay, Claire and Alex, for you've had a challenging couple of years, but I think have been really exemplary in the way that you've been able to think or plan in an agile way and to be able to adapt during this time. I think it's the early childhood people, teachers, educators, who have really been full on all the way through. Everybody in education's had a fairly challenging time, but you're working with families who have great concerns and children who are needing all of those nourishing aspects of the learning environment that Pam's been talking about, and you're people who really care on a very, very deep level. And so thank you for keeping the SIG even going. Thank you for your extraordinary tolerance at the time when your last live face-to-face conference had to be cancelled or had to be sort of put online, which was disappointing but hugely successful. And so let's look forward with the inspiration that Pam's given us this afternoon, and remembering that, well, here's, in my humble opinion, it's the early childhood educators who truly understand what learning is about and how learning happens. I love the fact that Pam was also referring to some things that haven't happened yet, and that there aren't gaps in children's learning. They've been with your ages and stages of development, they haven't missed learning, they've been doing different learning. And I can't remember how you put it, but it was a beautiful, you talked about the real gap. It's not the learning gap, it's the people gap. And that you're the bridge for those children to have kept going all the way through. So congratulations to all of you, and that includes everybody that's even here today. Spread the word, and if you'd like to be involved and you'd like to be able to bring a face-to-face conference back again, or you'd like to be able to have monthly webinars where you meet up with one another and you can inspire and keep each other going with new ideas. This is how we got through the last 2 years. I know I was heading up a school in Europe when for us COVID started, but in Hong Kong and Singapore and China, it had already been taken a complete grasp 6 weeks beforehand. We were learning from our colleagues there. How are you doing the online? What's working well? What's not? And we've been doing that for the last 2 years, refining the ways in which we've been working together. And that's the beauty of ECIS, professional development, professional learning, I think, that we can offer a platform for people to be able to come together and inspire one another, motivate one another, celebrate with one another, and move forward together with the children's learning at the centre of all we do. So bless you all. Thank you very, very much for all you do. And if you have questions or you want to make comments, shout out. You've got another 13 minutes or something. You're very welcome to speak out. You can either just turn on your microphone or pop something in the chat if you'd like to. Amira's put in something here to say, we'd love to see more play-based webinars with new strategy students to get them back to be inquirers. Wonderful ideas. Let's work on that, certainly.
Absolutely.
And that importance of play, and then also I think one of the things that the younger children really took a tumble on was the fact that they weren't able to sing in school, and so some of those children weren't singing at home either. So just not having any connection between what's happening with their vocal cords and what's happening with their brain interpretations. And
I'm just looking at the names of people coming up, so I'm thinking someone just put a message in, a message from Jordan, the Al Arabi school, just down the road from me, sort of.
Lovely. Yeah. And I think that's an important aspect too, that just looking at names and wishing that we could have another hour or so for everybody to be able to introduce themselves and teach each other how to say our names. This intercultural aspect of the work that you do in early childhood in particular is so rich, and you talked about a tapestry earlier on there and pulling those threads, and I think the threads of just the representation at this one meeting today, the early childhood special interest group has such important work to do in sometimes also helping other educators to understand the value of the very rich learning that happens with your smaller children.
I think what would be lovely, Sarah, is if people perhaps send in some suggestions of, just like the one that's come in, and let's look at it in a different way. Let's look at some of the things that we need to revise and go over again. But let's try and walk on the wild side a little bit and think, what's different? How can we inspire each other as early as educators to do something slightly out of the box, something different? I'm not suggesting we sort of rewrite early childhood, but it would be lovely, be brave. Think of all the things you've always wanted to do with your children. Someone said, oh no, we don't do that, or we can't do that, or the one that really drives me insane, small children can't do that. Really? No, anybody ask them? So I think that would be lovely to do some, let's walk on the wild side a little bit. I don't mean that literally. I mean, please don't put the children in any danger, but if you can bring to the table, thinking about the world that they're going into, the world they've experienced, I think that would be amazing.
And all that you've talked about with providing the environment, providing the learning resources, the natural world, and then because you were saying that some of the children haven't learned their social and emotional skills yet, because they've been in a different context. Your little boy in his box, for example.
Yeah, he has got out of it now, just so you know. He's fine. He's absolutely fine. Still likes being in that, but no.
And they will all be fine. They will be fine. This isn't going to be a life-damaging experience. There's been all wonderful.
It's interesting. I've always wanted, this is my campaign for the world translated into any language. I would love, outside of every childhood setting in the world, a sign that said beware free-range children. I would have loved that. I would just think it was just so wonderful. And just making sure that we can allow children to take some risks, because they have brought back with them a lot of fear. Some of that fear is overt and exemplified. Some of that fear is inside, and being honest. I'm fine. I've kind of got over myself now, but even when I've always flown for the past 15-20 years for my job, and I love flying. I am the most excited child on the plane, always. But the first time I flew after we were allowed out again, I really didn't want to go. I really did not want to be contained with other people. And then you realize that, you think you're okay, but actually maybe you're not. And it's all right. It's okay not to be okay. Recognize it and deal with it for the imposter that it is. And so the children bring that, but are not perhaps able to articulate it in the way that we would. And that's why the joy and the beauty is a critical piece of it. Really a critical piece. Yeah. And was it Amira's just saying our students were living in a bubble? It's our responsibility to hold their hands and introduce the real world for them. 100% Amira. I don't know where you are, but I'd love to see what your students experience, because I think that's phenomenal. Growing up is overrated. Childhood is phenomenal.
But as you were saying, if we can take a little bit of our childhood with us through our adulthood, it makes it a much richer experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure my husband would agree with you when I ask one of my, I was just thinking questions.
There's a lovely comment here from Sabrina. She says, thank you. It was dazzling. Your information was enriching, and the way you've connected real life examples with the lecture was just fascinating.
That's very humbling, Sabrina. Thank you very much. I'm honoured.
That's a real accolade. And so there's some comments coming in now on the chat. People know that they can get in touch with Michelle, and you can get in touch with Pam as well. You have various means of doing that. We'll be putting out, a call on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And if you know of people that you think might be interested in the work on the SIG committee, or you are indeed yourself and would like to learn from and with your colleagues in that work, we would be most delighted for you to be effective members of the ECIS Early Childhood Committee. And thank you very, very much to those of you, as I mentioned earlier on, who've served this year.
And can I also say, Sarah, it's been lovely to reconnect with you again, because we also worked together many years ago. I think it was at Amman, I'm not sure where it was, but and Michelle and Lindsay and I have met fairly recently, but Lindsay and I've reconnected, but we've all met together recently. And what I will say is the level of connectivity through a screen with, certainly Michelle I'd never met before, and coming back to Lindsay and Sarah, there is something about this group that really starts with the heart. And that for me is more important. We all have choices for the groups that we choose. I would, well, 100% I am part of this group, but it's that connectivity. So if you're feeling a bit shy and you're thinking, oh, shall I, shan't I, just do it. Because these guys are my best friends now. It's Michelle's very quiet tonight, but she does a phenomenal amount. I know that, no hiding.
Yeah. And it is, I think it's an important part of what people enjoy about ECIS is the personal interaction, and that it's that we do listen to one another, and that's all about the fact that we're all contributing together. So thank you all very, very much. We're heading to the top of the hour.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say to the whole committee a big thank you, but to Michelle and Lindsay, you've really kept this alive. Bless you both. Thank you very, very much for your work, and your committee colleagues are clapping you there. And to Pam, thank you for a wonderful, inspiring reignition. And so we all leave into our evenings here, but for many people perhaps earlier in the day, remotivated to get round the table together, whether it's the proverbial table online or whether we're able to do some face-to-face at some point. But first of all, you probably all need a really good summer break. Some of you are moving, some of you are staying put and just collapsing. And we look forward very much to moving forward again in the new year. But get in touch, chuck in a little message to say, I'm interested. And Michelle and Lindsay will be delighted to hear from you.
So, and then we can all play together, Sarah. That'd be lovely.
And let's bring back that play. I don't know if you got the Michael Rosen playbook, but I managed to get to his exhibition as well. The Wellcome Foundation put on an exhibition in London last year, and it was absolutely fabulous. Let's get play back on the agenda, for heaven's sakes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think for many of us, it never left. And I can tell you now, being out here in Saudi Arabia tonight, I'm going to walk to dinner now, and I'm taking my shoes off, and I'm definitely going to walk through the sand.
Lovely, bless. That's lovely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you for Abby, who's in the background there and has been recording us, and see you all soon. We'll get some more around the tables in the new year. Thank you, Claire. I spelt your name wrongly on the thing. Sorry. Thank you. All right. Bye now then.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Abby, for sorting us all out. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'll send the slides on. Take care. Bye-bye.